Okay, welcome back. In this section, we're going to go over the three major kinds of personal illusions. We've been talking a lot about illusions and how to disillusion ourselves, get rid of those illusions. So the three major kinds are: one, we think we know other people; two, we think we know ourselves; and three, we think we understand the world. Let's go through and let's break these down one by one. So, we think we know other people. No, we know what other people tell us. We used to say in treatment, if you read the entire person's chart, all their history from start to finish, you met with their families, you spent 30 days in treatment with them, maybe you had them there for 6 months. They were open, they were honest, they were intelligent, they divulged, you felt like they shared all their secrets with you. If you knew anything like 1, 2, or 3% about that person, you had absolutely crushed it. Why? Because it's hard to know a whole person just from a little bit. And we only know what other people tell us. We try to make ourselves look good, so we say certain things, we don't say other things. Certain things we believe, but they're not true. Certain things we believe are true that we present, but they're not true. We've talked a lot about that. So we don't really know other people. Hell, we don't really know ourselves at a fundamental level. Next is we see through our biases. Everything is filtered. There's a filter between me and you. So there's me, the filter, and then you. I have to look through that filter, and then everything you say back comes through that filter. Everything is warped as it goes out, and everything is warped as it comes back in. It's like it's been encoded twice. You'll never get the right information back. The next reason we think we know other people, but we really don't, is we often see what we want to see. We idealize people, or we villainize people, conversely. We see what we want to see. Remember confirmation bias? Isn't that seeing what you want to see? Guess what? We don't just do that with ideas, we do it with people. It's one of the most common things we do it with. We also distort what we know about other people with our history. In what context are they in our lives? How are they affiliated with us? Were they helpful? Were they hurtful? What was their first impression? There's tons of ways that we distort with our history. Our background, who we are, colors who they are. Remember, we see the world as we are, not as it is. We distort with our own BS, our belief systems. That's our major filter. Not just the way we look at the world, but the way we explain it to ourselves. We're going to do a section on that later, on explanatory styles. We distort with our self-esteem. Sometimes we like people better because they make us feel better about ourselves. Sometimes we like people less because they don't make us feel as good about ourselves. And sometimes we completely dislike people for no other reason than they don't make us feel good about ourselves. A lot of times it's because they're better than we are in some way, shape, or form. We take that as a personal offense. Miscommunication. One of the strangest things to understand in psychology is that it's virtually impossible for two humans to communicate and have good communication. We used to do a talking feather thing in groups, and we did it largely with couples. And these couples had been together 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, sometimes even 50 years. They could literally complete each other's sentences, but they had huge miscommunications. You know what we would do? We would do an exercise called the talking feather. I would give one of the couples, say the wife, the talking feather, and say, I want you to have a conversation with your husband. Just talk for like 30 seconds. Give him one idea, one concept, one thing you want to communicate, and then hand him the feather. Now, he can't talk while you got the feather. You can't talk while he's got the feather. So you're going to talk uninterrupted for 30 seconds. Then you're going to, when you're done, approximately 30 seconds, then you're going to pass it over to him. And he's going to tell you what you just said. At each point where he makes an error, I want you to correct him, and then I want you to hand him back the feather. On average, they would have to go back and say the same thing and repeat it for the person and go back and forth 6, 7, 8 times on average. So say 7 times on average for the person to have got it right once. This is with people that felt they knew everything about everybody. They totally knew each other. They've been with each other. They knew each other better than any other human being outside themselves in the whole world. And horrible communication. Here's horrible communication. I have a dog. You think you understood what I said, right? Pretty simple communication. I got a dog. You're like, yeah, Mr. Paul, I understand what you said. No, you don't. What color is my dog? How much does my dog weigh? What breed is my dog? Is my dog alive or dead? Is it a good dog or a bad dog? You know nothing about my dog. You're not even picturing the right dog. So we think we communicated, but we didn't. We had more miscommunication than actual communication. There was about 5 words that I said, and we had about 37 miscommunications. So miscommunication happens over and over and over. We always layer our story upon your communication. If you tell me anything like a dog, hey, Mr. Paul, I got a dog. I go, great. What do I immediately do? I picture my dog. Or my, amalgamation of a dog, my theme of a dog, the way that I see a dog, my dog template, literally. It's a miscommunication. We do this 1,000 times with everything. Somebody says, oh, my girlfriend just broke up with me. And I said, oh, I know just what that's like. I've had several girlfriends and they left me and it was just awful. No, I have Paul's experience of a girl leaving me. You tell me about it, and I try to figure out where it's just like what I went through. And when you say something that triggers something in me, I say, oh, you felt just like me. No. It might have even been close, but it was not the same. You can even take 2 people, and you can prick them both with a pin in the exact same spot, and they don't feel the same pain. This is how hard it is to communicate in any way, shape, or form and have it be identical between 2 people. So lots of miscommunications. I think I've said enough about that. I'm going to drive on. False associations. We associate certain things with people that aren't really true. We might think somebody's really nice because we saw him hold a door for a person. Well, maybe that was his boss, and that's why he was being nice. Maybe he normally doesn't do that. Maybe he slams doors in people's faces. We don't know. So people do various behaviors, and then we kind of grade it, and then we assume they're right. And we make false associations over and over and over again. So we don't really know other people. We think we know ourselves. Not really. We have a lot of illusions. Why? Remember we talked about the imprint period? During then and beyond that, we believed a lot of what other people told us. Whether it was true or false, whether it was right or wrong, whether it was a good source or a bad source. Next, we see through our biases, and we've talked about this over and over again, so I hope that you're beginning to understand what a filter is and how many different ways that it works. All these personal illusions that we're talking about right now are various forms of filters. We often see what we want to see, which is what? It's a bias, it's a filter. I let in what I want, and I don't let in what I don't want. This is a defect of your brain which gives you the wrong information because it's trying to protect you and make you feel better. Remember, we move towards pleasure and away from pain. Your brain does that. So when you have painful memories, it tries to move away from them. When you have pleasant memories, it tries to move towards them. When people say nice things about you, you try to absorb it. When people say negative things about you, try to move away from it. You reject it. This helps your brain to boost your self-esteem, which isn't a bad thing. But in doing so, it's giving you a massive amount of false information, and you don't even realize you're doing it. Next, we distort with our history. I remember one comedian, he said, I've had a pretty good life. Well, it's not entirely true. I have an editing process in my brain. And whenever there's something negative, I like to snip it out and I leave it on the cutting room floor. So I don't know if I had a great life, but I did some amazing things with editing. That is so funny and that is so true. That's your positive use of your brain's editing tool. You literally do this. The comedian was saying it as if it were something funny, but it's something that's true. Matter of fact, it's so true, that's why everybody laughs. It's so true. It's what? It's funny. We distort with our belief system. I think that one's fairly obvious because most of that is a distortion in and of itself, so that's the ultimate filter. We distort with our self-esteem. Remember, we're always going to protect our self-esteem. We do it as if we were protecting ourselves, because we are. We are our self-esteem. So we'll distort things to make our self-esteem healthier and to protect it. We think it's part of us. It's actually a defect. We'll talk about that later. We can't see ourselves. So we think we know ourselves, but go ahead and do a presentation on stage. See if you know yourself. See yourself on tape. Even listen to yourself on an audio recording. You know, the first time somebody hears themselves on audio, they're usually horrified, unless they just have the most beautiful voice ever. They're horrified by the sound of their own voice. And they're like, no. You know, the tone, the cadence is the same, but that's not me. That's not my voice. That doesn't sound anything like I sound in my head, and it sounds horrible. I hope to hell I don't sound like that. And you do. And it's not horrible. It's only horrible to you. You're the only one that cares. That's the ego again. That's the self-esteem. So we can't see ourselves. We can't see how we look. You know, I used to have people come up to me and they said, Paul, you okay? You know, you look really depressed. And I'm like, I don't know. I can't see my face. What are you seeing? I thought I was relaxed. It was the one time I wasn't feeling bad all day. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't uptight. I was feeling relaxed. And you took that as horribly depressed because, you know, your face kind of sagged and your head was down and your shoulder was down. That's also known as complete relaxation. So we can't literally see ourselves. We don't know how we look to other people. We don't know how much facial expression we give off or fail to give off. We're just all guessing. We don't practice our facial expressions in the mirror. We can't see ourselves. And finally, and I think everyone will agree this is true, we both hide and distort our pain. We deflect it. What do you think muscular tension is? That's you distorting your pain. Physical, mental pain becomes locked in the muscle, and that becomes what? Physical pain. It's one of the ways you distract yourself. That's how somatic disorders start. Soma is a Greek word, just means body. Soma, somatic disorders. The pain of the brain going into the body. It's that mind-body connection. We distort our pain. We distort our pain and we tell ourselves it's worse than it is. Oh my God, this is the most horrible thing that's ever happened in the history of man. This only happens to me. Poor me. We hide pain. We talked about that. We hide it, we suppress it, we cut it out, we put it on the editing room floor. So we don't even truly know ourselves. Plus, most people can't remember back to what? The imprint period. You don't even know why you are the way you are because you weren't there, cognizant, watching, and remembering during the imprint period. Even if you have memories of that time, you don't remember accepting or rejecting anything. You don't remember when you learned every little thing. You know, there's only 100 people with a, what do they call that, eidetic memory? Like that. There's 101 in the entire world. So that isn't you. Matter of fact, I know you don't know much about yourself because A, you're human, and B, you're taking this course. If you already thought you knew everything, you wouldn't be taking the course. Those people missed the course, and those are people who probably know far less about themselves than you. You are at least self-aware enough. This is the first understanding of a truly intelligent person, that I don't know what I don't know. So maybe I should go find out. That's about as intelligent as a human being ever gets. That's you. Congratulations. 3, we think we understand the world. Again, because we believe what other people tell us, we get our information about the world through 2 sources, and they're horrible. 1, other people and outside sources giving us information about the world. They all have agendas. They lie. They have their own distortions. They don't completely understand reality, and then they're repeating it to us. They are wildly biased, and then they give it to us. This is before people are even, trying to be negative or lie to you. They can't help themselves. Second, we believe what we see, what we tell ourselves, what we internally tell ourselves. We don't realize we're a sample of one. I would tell this to my psychology students all the time. I said, don't trust your own experience. Why? Because you're a sample of one. And a sample of one is no damn good statistically. You can't say anything in general based on one sample. And that's all you have. You have one life. You know an awful lot about that life. You're the leading expert on that life. But it tells you nothing statistically about the rest of the world. You just assume that, and that's a massive assumption. Think of it this way. Statistically, if my experience is real and therefore matches everybody else's, everybody else is an adult, married, white, 54-year-old male with no kids and 3 pooches. Okay? Well, that's not right. That's instinctively wrong. Well, but that's my experience. It can't be wrong because it's my experience. We think because it's our experience that it can't be wrong. We saw all these things. We heard all these things. We put all this logic together. Therefore, it has to be right and it has to be true. Otherwise, we're what? We're insane. Well, that's the other first realization of an intelligent person. You are a little crazy. What's a crazy person? Somebody who holds illusions and believes them to be true. That's the definition of a crazy person. They don't get the true reality. Isn't that a crazy person? Yes. Who's that? That's all of us. So we have horrible sources of information. Next, we often see what we want to see. We've talked about that. We distort with our history. We layer our story. History literally means, Michael Jackson had an album by this title. He called it History, or His Story. That was the name of the album. His Story. That's what history is. You put your story on top of what happened, and you call that what? History. They say history is always written by the victor. Why? Because they're going to have a different version. They're going to give you their version because they won, because they get to tell the story. They don't tell the truth. They tell the story. And again, I want to let you know, this doesn't mean that you're lying to yourself, even though you are. It doesn't mean that you're lying to yourself. You have a story that you believe to be true based on what you've seen and heard, with all these limitations that every human has, and that becomes your story. But I want you to know it's just a story. We're going to talk more about this later. Okay. We, of course, start with our own belief systems, the false associations. This is why we can't understand the outside world, for the same reason we can't understand the inside world. We make serious logic errors. Remember, only like 1 person in 100 has ever had a single course on critical thinking. Never mind multiple courses. And everybody actually makes probably more logic errors than logic corrects, correct logic assumptions. Because we don't know enough about logic. We're not really trained in this area. Strangely, in America, we do not teach people to think. And finally, and I talked about this, I guess I got ahead of myself, we're a sample of one, and a sample of one is no good. Okay, folks, that's it for this section on personal illusions. I want you to kind of go over this. You own this course, so go through, pick back through, see how these are true, and I want you to carefully examine the areas where I said something, or you see them on the slides and you say, I don't think that's true. That's the one you need to work on, because I can guarantee you, this has been like researched, every single one of these is true. If you're not seeing it as true, somehow you're blocking yourself. Somehow you have to make a new distinction. This might be where you write in and you say, hey, Professor Paul, can you help me out with this one? Okay, that's it for this section, and I'll see you in the next training.